Hi everyone. In this lesson we're going to continue practicing writing proofs, and we're going to continue on page number 2 from the last lesson. So we have on this page proofs number 3, 4, and 5. For the people who joined the Zoom meeting today, I explained them in detail, these 3 proofs, so I'm going to try to do it a little bit more faster here. So number 3 says, given the diagram below, prove that measure of angle W plus measure of angle X plus measure of angle Z is equal to 180. So this would be the conclusion that we want to get at the end. So this will have to be the last statement in the proof. And the guiding question is here. What do you know about angle X, angle Y, and angle Z? So angle X, angle Y, and angle Z are the 3 interior angles of the triangle, and we know that the 3 interior angles are 280. So we could actually write that, and notice that that equation that we're going to be writing is very similar to the equation that we want to get at the end. So that's sort of one way to start a proof. If it is a simple proof like this one, you try to write an equation that looks like the equation that you want to get at the end. And then by substituting something, you should be able to get the equation that you want to get as the conclusion. So let's start by writing what we know. And we know that the measure of angle X plus the measure of angle Y plus the measure of angle Z is equal to 180 because they are interior angles of the triangle. So that is because they are interior angles of a triangle. So here I'm writing the reasons in a simplified way. Remember that when you write the proof, the reasons have to be written as complete statements, complete theorems, complete definitions, or the names of the properties. So next, we look at the equation that we have. As I said, it's very similar to this one, and we already have measure of angle X and measure of angle Z on the left side of the equation, measure of angle X and measure of angle Z. So the only thing that we are missing is measure of angle W, but instead of that we have measure of angle Y. So instead of having measure of angle W, I have measure of angle Y. So how can I get measure of angle W here in the place of this? Well, it's very simple, because if you notice in the diagram, angle W and angle Y are vertical angles, so they are equal, and therefore you could substitute the measure of angle Y here by what's equal to measure of angle Y, which is the measure of angle W. So let me write first of all this information that we know. We know that the measure of angle W is equal to the measure of angle Y because they are vertical angles. And so now we could actually substitute the measure of angle W plus the measure of angle Y. We substitute the measure of angle Y with the measure of angle W, and we should get what we want. So let's write over here what we get when we substitute. We get the measure of angle X plus the measure of angle W plus the measure of angle Z is equal to 180. And we got this by substituting. Again, we compare this equation with what we want as the conclusion. And it's pretty similar. We have W, X, and Z on the left side, only we have here in a different order. We have X, W, and Z, and equal to 180 on the right side. So you could leave this as it is right now. That would be okay. Or you could exchange the place of the W and the X. But if you do that extra step, you have to justify it here with a reason. So if you remember from algebra, you could have A plus B is equal to B plus A, and that is the commutative property of addition. You could write the addition in any order, so you could substitute, you could justify that with that property. So you can do that here. Measure of angle W plus measure of angle X plus measure of angle Z is equal to 180, and that was by using the commutative property of addition. This is not one of the properties listed in the sheet of properties. You will have to know this from algebra. Okay, so now you go with this plan to write the proof, and you know that the proof should look exactly the same as the plan, only with the reasons written as complete definitions, theorems, or properties. So the proof will look like this. So now we're going to continue to number 4. I'm going to number 4. Number 4 says, given the diagram below, prove that the measure of angle W is equal to the measure of angle Y plus the measure of angle Z. So angle W equal to the measure of angle Y plus the measure of angle Z. How are we going to get that? We're going to see that, but we have to remember that this is the conclusion that we want to get. That's the last thing that should be written on the statements. So the guiding question is here. Plan first. What do you know about angle X, angle Z, and angle W? Angle X, angle Z, and angle W. How are these three related to each other? Or you could think about writing an equation that looks similar to the last statement, and then by substitution you should be able to get exactly this one. So one equation that looks similar to this, and then by substitution you should be getting this equation. And the guided question is actually telling you what to write, what equation you have to write. You have to write an equation about the relationship between angles X, Z, and W. And angle W is the exterior angle, and angle X and angle Z are the opposite interior angles to angle W. And we know that angle W is equal to the sum of these two angles here. That's the exterior angle theorem. So I'm writing that right here. We know that the measure of angle W is equal to the measure of angle X plus the measure of angle Z, because that is an exterior angle. The exterior angle equals to the sum of the two opposite interior angles. And then how I'm gonna get this equation from the equation that we have over here. We have angle W on the left side, and then on the right side we have angle Z, but I don't have angle Y, but in the place of angle Y I have angle X. So how can I get here the measure of angle Y instead of this? Well, we can see in the diagram that angle Y and angle X, they are vertical, and therefore they are equal to each other. So that means whatever you see, the measure of angle X you could substitute with the measure of angle y because they are equal. So let me write the information that we know about these two angles. We know that the measure of angle x is equal to the measure of angle y because they are vertical angles. And if we substitute over there, we end up with the equation the measure of angle W is equal to the measure of angle Y plus the measure of angle Z, which is exactly what we want to have. And how do we get this? That was by substituting. Okay, so basically that's it. And with this information, you go to write the proof in a very organized way, and the proof should look like this. Now we're going to the last proof on page number 2, which is proof number 5. What do you need to prove? You need to prove that the measure of angle y plus the measure of angle z is equal to the measure of angle w plus the measure of angle x. And here we have this extra information. For this proof, you will need to add a label to the diagram, which I already did. Is this extra angle which was not labeled, so I labeled it A. Remember that whatever you label has to be written on the diagram. And the guiding proof, the guiding question is here. What do you know about the interior angles of a triangle? Over there. What do we know about the interior angles of a triangle? And we know that the interior angles of a triangle are 280. And if we look at the diagram, we have two triangles. Let's start with the big triangle over here, which I'm highlighting right now in yellow. So for the big triangle, if we use the three interior angles, we will have this equation. Measure of angle W plus measure of angle X plus measure of angle A is equal to 180 because those are interior angles of a triangle. Okay, so that's the equation that we have for the big triangle. But we also have a small triangle, which I'm going to highlight right now. So we write now the equation for the small triangle, which is the measure of angle Y plus the measure of angle Z plus the measure of angle A is equal to 180, and that would be for the same reason for the previous one. So now we compare what we have to what we need to have at the end with the conclusion that we want to get at the end. And at the end, we should have only one equation. But right now we have two, so we need to combine these two equations into one. So we can use the transitive property to combine these two equations because here we have two quantities that look different, but both of them are equal to the same quantity, 180. Therefore, these two quantities must be equal to each other. So I'm writing that over here. The measure of angle W plus the measure of angle X plus the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle Y plus the measure of angle Z plus the measure of angle A. And we're getting this by the transitive property. So now one more time, we compare this equation with what we want to have at the end, which is this one. We have angle Y and Z, only is on the other side, but we have this extra measure of angle A. And then we have angle W and X on the other side, which is only on the left side, but that's fine. So I need to get rid of this measure of angle A's on both sides because that's extra here, and since we have addition, we need to now subtract. So we subtract measure of angle A and measure of angle A on both sides, which cancels those measure of angle A's on both sides, leaving for us measure of angle W plus measure of angle X is equal to the measure of angle Y plus measure of angle Z. Again, we compare what we have to what we're supposed to have as the conclusion. We have angle Y and Z, only it is on the right side. Here we have on the left side. We have W and X, only it is on the left side. Here we have on the right side. So we could do one extra step, or we could plan at the beginning, writing this equation so that we will get exactly what we want at the end. So we don't have to do this extra step. But in this case, I would say I didn't plan correctly. I need one extra step. So let's do the step that we want. And this is the symmetric property, because the symmetric property allows us to write equations in either order. For example, if you have x equal to 4, you could write 4 equal to x. You are allowed to change everything that is on the right side to the left side and everything that is on the left side to the right side. So we could do that here. We're going to take this, move it to this side, take this, move it to the other side. So we will have measure of angle Y plus measure of angle Z is equal to the measure of angle W plus the measure of angle X. And with that, we can see that we have exactly what we want at the end. So we did this by using the symmetric property. And this by using subtraction, the subtraction property of equality. Okay, let me highlight one more time that we could have done, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, but we could have done this in 4 steps if we would have planned this step correctly. So instead of writing this thing on the left side, we should have put this on the right side and this on the left side, so that we don't have to do the extra step of exchanging at the end. If you notice in my proof, when I wrote it, that's actually what I did. So here I have 5 steps, but here I have only 4, because when I wrote step number 3, I put on the left side the measure of angle Y plus measure of angle Z plus measure of angle A. So when I do the subtraction, I end up with the equation that I want to get. So I only have 4 steps. So that is how the proof should look. And those are all the proofs for page number 2. Now I'm going to leave your homework on the website. This time you do have homework and you have, I think, 5 proofs to do. The proofs are very similar to the 5 proofs that we have done in these pages. They are, I would say, the same proofs, only the diagrams look a little bit different, but they are all the same. So I'm basically asking you to recreate these 5 proofs that we have done in pages number 1 and number 2. So practice with these proofs, do your homework, and send it to my email address. That's it for the lesson for today.